Well, hello everyone, it's your dorky bibliophile, Cinzia, and today we're going to be talking about autumn anxiety. I am a bit of a weirdo. I am genuinely so grateful that the days are getting shorter and darker again. I basically live my life in darkness. I start working in the evening and I stay up until the early hours because when at nighttime I feel most at peace. But I realise that I am not the norm. Most people find themselves feeling deflated and anxious at this time of year. And autumn anxiety is a real thing. So it's whether or not you're going back into academia or you're just feeling anxious about your routine changing, not being able to exercise as much or as freely, having to change your diet, or just feeling unsafe to go out past sunset. Now, autumn anxiety is not totally dissimilar from seasonal affective disorder, but it's less about getting depression and lethargy due to a lack of sunlight and more related to just general feelings of anxiety associated with autumn, which I already mentioned. See, for me personally, I love how this time of year reminds me of going back to school. But for others, it may feel like that sinking feeling in your stomach, which I totally relate to, even if you haven't been in school for years. You see, every year around Easter time, I become incredibly anxious and depressed, and I realise it's my body associating that time of year with an upcoming exam season, even though I haven't sat an exam in over a decade. Additionally, you may be affected by the impending sense of doom of financial stress that autumn and winter months bring. You may be dreading yet another stressful, upsetting, or unfulfilling Christmas or Thanksgiving, the change in foods and textures you're going to be exposed to, the degree of socialising expected from you at this time of year, etc. On the topic of sensory changes, you may be dreading other sensory differences from the types of clothing that you're expected to wear, the temperature changes and the weather conditions, such as even driving in the rain or snow more often. You may be feeling anxiety about that. So I hope I've made it a bit clear that compared to seasonal affective disorder, autumn anxiety is about the societal, environmental and behavioural changes that you're anticipating. And let's face it, you're basically dreading all of them. So, as someone who loves this time of year, I want to give you some tips to help you manage your autumn anxiety as much as I possibly can. Let's talk about the mental changes that you will have to take to transition from summer to autumn. So first, I want you to actually do some journaling and write down all of your anxieties, from sensory issues to bad memories and worries about the season ahead. It's only by listing down everything you're dreading about autumn and winter that you can start identifying accommodations you can make for them. But before you identify the accommodations you're going to make, which are entirely tailored to your personal needs, I want you to first look at your list and highlight those things that are actually in your control and separate them from those which are not. You see, there will be things that you can't control, like weather conditions, but there will usually always be something you can control in relation to them, and that's the mindset that you need to adopt. So for example, you can't control how many social events that you may be expected to attend this year, but you can control how many times you say yes, or putting boundaries in place to only attend for a certain period of time, etc. Similarly, you can't control that it gets darker earlier in the day, but you can control how you schedule your life. And you may choose to schedule tasks at different times of days than you usually would, purely to adjust yourself to sunlight or sociable hours. But if you find yourself in cases where there's an anxiety you've listed and you can't find or identify any aspect where you can control yourself or it, then that is where you have to work on removing it entirely and accepting that you can't control any of it and just letting it go, which is where meditation comes in. It's the whole thing of identifying the leaves that are falling from a tree and then letting it go down the river. The important thing is to remember that no one will know your needs or advocate for them as much as you can and should. So tap into mindfulness techniques and practice self-advocacy. Ask for help or accommodations where needed. I promise you, people will not judge you as harshly as you think they will, and you may actually be surprised with, one, how many people are really happy to accommodate you, and 2, how many people actually agree with you and will probably want the same thing. The second part of dealing with autumn anxiety is adjusting your lifestyle and habits for it. Now, you may find that you need to completely overthrow your current routine or schedule depending on your needs and preferences. And there's a weird habit of people seeing a change in routine as failing your last routine. Having seasonal routines is not indicative of failing. Rather, it makes far more sense if you think about it. You have to adjust to the world around you. People have had to do it for centuries. That's how we evolved. Staying the same doesn't get you anywhere in life, and actually this is quite exciting. But I understand your reasons for not wanting to do it because it can seem embarrassing. So I'm going to give myself as an example. I am very embarrassed by my summer routine because basically I don't like sunlight. Yes, I know I'm a bit of a vampire and I very luckily work freelance. So during the summer months, I create most of my schedule to exist within nighttime hours, which also means my friends just don't see me in the sunny parts of the year. I go missing for months to them. Because I work primarily between 6 p.m. and 3 a.m. instead of the 9 to 5 or the 5 a.m. wake-up call because it's still too bright then, okay? It has to be as dark as physically possible. And in winter, I find myself adjusting to be able to work a little bit earlier because it gets darker earlier. So I understand how it can feel embarrassing to change your lifestyle. If you want to evaluate your lifestyle and needs and move your body accordingly, you will benefit from it, despite social pressures to not do that. So for example, if you're someone who likes to work out after work, but hates working out in the dark and it will be dark after work, perhaps move your workout routine to the early hours or lunchtime if you can. Or just move them entirely to weekends because then you can do it at your own free will. Now, you probably notice here that I have talked a lot more about exercise and health, and that's because when you're suffering from anxiety, health is the first thing to go out the window. I speak from experience. I find that I just don't exercise at all throughout summer, and I dislike myself a lot for it. So please learn from my mistakes because it only makes my anxiety worse, even though I don't exercise because I'm too anxious to go outside. The same goes for eating healthy. Nothing makes your anxiety worse than eating a load of processed foods filled with salt and sugars that spike your blood sugar levels. So just be mindful of the ways that you may be sabotaging yourself on a daily basis without even realizing it. It's not about demonizing certain foods or trying to lose weight or stay thin. It's purely about how it actually affects your brain. Remember, you are what you eat, literally. So please be aware that you may be sabotaging yourself and making yourself more anxious. And now all that's out the way, now time for the fun part, finding joy in the season. I mean, we've all heard about spring cleaning, but have you heard about autumnal nesting? Well, you won't have done. It's something I just made up right now, but I think we'll just go along with it. So adjusting your living and working spaces is crucial for helping you deal with your autumn anxiety, and that doesn't involve moving your furniture around unless you want to. Creating a cozy and comforting home environment to either work from or come home to will help you feel safe and secure when your anxiety is telling you that Mother Nature and the world are against you, and you're just going to curl up into a ball and cry. Trust me, there will be elements of the season that you like, even if you're not a fan of the basic things like candles and blankets and cozy reading nooks. I can't relate, but I'm sure there are people who don't. But creating a comforting environment isn't always about aesthetics. It's about feeling at ease within yourself. And that also means confronting some things a little bit early. So it may look like you going over your finances early and setting stronger boundaries on how much you can budget for the season ahead, which will happen well in advance so you don't dread family gatherings or work events. It may even look like hiring a coach or a mentor to help you with your scheduling your life and getting professional support. Or it may even look like taking up a new hobby to take your mind off the world outside of you. So say you're someone who likes exercising outside, an indoor hobby and adjusting to that is probably what you need when it's all raining out and you don't want to get cold and wet. Now, one suggestion of taking your mind off autumn anxiety is actually today's sponsor, which is brilliant. A space where you can learn by doing with thousands of interactive lessons in math, data analysis, programming, and AI, which is very exciting and actually really appropriate for autumnal seasoning. Hands-on learning is 6 times more effective than watching lecture videos, which is why Lessons with Brilliant is filled with hands-on problem solving that lets you play with concepts, allowing you to build your critical thinking skills and build real knowledge in just a few minutes a day. which is far more fulfilling than mindlessly scrolling on your phone or staring out at the blank world, wishing that it was summer again. Brilliant recently launched a ton of new content in data, all of which uses real-world data such as, rental value for Airbnbs, or going viral on X, or topping the charts on Spotify, to train you to see trends and make better informed decisions. To explore everything Brilliant has to offer, go to brilliant.org/self-help shelf for a free 30-day trial and 20% off an annual subscription. Okay, so let's conclude this. This is a bit more of a serious note, but as someone who has spent the past few years really suffering from the negative consequences of stress and anxiety, which has resulted in me going to numerous doctor's appointments and even hospital just last month, I hate knowing that there will be people going through what I went through in the summer, and I felt very alone during it. And it feels even more personal because it's happening to people in autumn. And autumn is the most magical and wondrous time of year, in my opinion, and it just makes me very upset knowing that people will be suffering from anxiety because of the season itself. I don't want people to take health and mental consequences of anxiety and stress lightly, even if it sounds superficial with autumn anxiety. Anxiety and stress can have incredibly debilitating and horrific consequences on your finances, health, and relationships. So I hope this video has inspired you and given you some comfort, and if you are one of those people, please be kind to yourself this season. Put boundaries in place and go against the grain. Do what you need to do to feel settled in your mind and body, and don't mind the norm and what they tell you to do. Embrace your differences and discover your own way to love autumn, all on your terms. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing for more, and I will see you soon for another video. And remember, books save lives, so keep reading.